Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Podcast, episode 106. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
And we have an incredibly fun episode today.
This is definitely an interesting one that was enjoyable to put together.
A ton of people have asked us to cover AoS content, and we're going to stick our toes in the water just a little bit. To get everybody acquainted, we're going to do a callback to an early episode of ours for 40k. We're going to cover every faction's mascot, the sales pitch for a faction. And we're just going to say our choices for them and talk about some of the other possible choices, and the YouTube version will have some very nice pretty pictures of everything, and hopefully it can help you feel the right vibe for the army you're going for. So without any further ado, let's get into this.
Sounds good.
All right, so to start things off, we'll go the general order that GW puts things in. We're going to do all the order, then the death, then we'll do chaos, and then we'll finish off with some destruction. Because there's the 4 grand alliances in AoS that everything gets pooled into, and then there's the actual factions within those.
All right, so starting off with the most exciting, Cities of Sigmar.
So I see your pick, Eric. Tell the audience your pick.
I picked the Steam Tank.
I can't disagree, but
It's not, from a model aspect, it's not the greatest design ever.
You don't say.
But I do think it is kind of cool. And if you have interest in that type of aesthetic, Cities of Sigmar is where you want to be.
Yeah, it gets into the fact that a lot of cities models are older too, so you're upfront about that. They are getting a range refresh that the first wave of it hit, and it's beautiful, which we'll get to in my model.
It is pretty cool that they're getting updates, because at least some parts of this model, the Steam Tank, are very obvious in its age.
Yeah.
I do really think it's cool though, and like the fact that, you know, you've got like this armored cannon kind of thing. Like, it's not a tank, really.
What is a tank if not an armored cannon?
Yeah, I guess.
Did you know this was based off the Stormcast?
Yeah.
That's why it's stupid. It's on purpose. Therefore, you can't make fun of it.
I'm pretty sure that there were cannons that had stuff like this.
I'm sure there were.
But I don't know if they also had turrets on top. I'm pretty sure that wasn't part of it.
I dig the aesthetic. It's a bit more on the dated side of what Cities has. On my side of things, we've got the Free Guild Cavalier Marshal, which is clearly one of the newest models. So this just came out, and I think it does a great job of showing off the new look of Cities of Sigmar. It's wonderful at doing the very grimdark fantasy, grittier looking humanity, and it's supposed to be more than humanity, but the refresh focused only on humanity, and people are wondering if it's not going to be that way come 4th edition.
Yeah, maybe that'll get split up and there'll be some type of internal conflict or something. But the interesting thing about the new model, it is this grim aesthetic, but you see that there is a lot of technology still.
Yep, still gunpowder, everything else. They're not like a low tech. They're still Renaissance era, we'll call it.
Yeah, and like there's an entire war machine society backing up these knights that are on horses. Like, it's not just dude picked up a sword, got on a horse, and off he goes.
You've got the new shield cannon unit too. Very cool. But I just have to give it to, like, if I'm trying to summarize the new look in a single kit, it's the Free Guild Cavalier Marshal. I really wanted to call out the Alchemite Warforger. It's a gorgeous model, but I don't think it does the job as well as the Free Guild Cavalier.
I see what you're saying. It's not really the aesthetic that I would put to the rest of the range, but it is cool.
If I'm showing it to a new person, it's not the pick, but it's beautiful.
All right, Daughters of Khaine. I see we've found the commonality here.
We found the vibe.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a great jumping off point into something we'll touch on throughout this. Age of Sigmar does a wonderful job of a game design philosophy that Mark Rosewater talked about before, which is if you have 2 hypothetical things you're presenting your audience. One of them, everybody gives a static 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 the whole way through when they review it. The other one, some people give it a 2 out of 10, other people give it a 10 out of 10. You always want to have that be the one that goes live, because there's more excitement.
It's just strong emotions either way can be beneficial, but it needs to not just be 2 out of 10s across the board. There still needs to be the, oh, this group of people are in love with it and it's a 12 out of 10 to them kind of thing.
And that's where you get into like Daughters of Khaine is neither of our favorite army. The half-naked elf chicks doesn't really do it for us. I mean, but like, it's not what I want to be seen playing.
Yeah.
That said, if they are your cup of tea, they're probably your favorite army or close to it.
Yeah. If you look at the range and you look at like Morathi Khaine, the Shadow Queen.
Yeah. Morathi's model is an easy sales pitch. It's when you get to the actual witch elves after where you're like, not really for me, but Morathi's cool as hell.
Yeah.
But you chose Morathi. I chose the Melusai Blood Sisters, but basically the Snake Ladies is a great look. And you could do the bow ones or whatever. I prefer the masked melee one, but
yeah, I think the Snake Lady aesthetic, it's unique, and if you're interested in it, Daughters of Khaine.
And you can have bat ladies, and you can have just normal elf ladies who have daggers and look scary.
And look scary. Yes. Let's move on to the dwarfs, though. We got Fyreslayers.
The first flavor of them in AoS, because AoS does put some variety between them.
It's true, because Fyreslayers are just drunk berserkers that run naked around with axes.
I guess if we're ignoring the fact that Cities has like everybody in it, which may be why they're trying to move away from that.
So yeah, I mean, I went with Volkite berserkers just because, like, yep, they're dwarfs that are basically naked with axes.
It's definitely not what I would use to sell this faction to somebody, but it's probably the most honest representation of the faction.
And part of it is like, I know you don't give a shit about the dwarfs with no armor.
Slayers have never been cool to me. You can't make the axe-wielding half-naked dwarf cool to me.
But there are people that think that that is very cool. And like, I get it. There's something fun about just like being the old berserker that stoned out of their head and something and just charging to battle with an axe. And glorious beards too. That's a big selling point. But the model you chose is definitely a little bit cooler.
Okay, so the only reason I could sell someone on Fyreslayers would be Magmadroths, which is their sweet lizard dragon salamander pets. There are not enough of them. They need more kits that include Magmadroths. But the Orruk Rune Smiter on Magmadroth would be my go-to example of, look at this, isn't this cool? Ignore the swarm of naked dudes. Look at the giant lizard.
Yeah, it is a very cool, and like, it's not really dragon, it's kind of dragony, but it's more...
It reminds me of the second boss in Ocarina of Time that you have to throw the bombs in its mouth. It's a very specific...
Yeah, I mean, very popular game. There's probably a bunch of people that know what you're talking about and are like, yes.
Eric is the one person alive who hates Zelda.
They ruined it after the first one. Yeah, I see what you're saying. The Magmadroth is definitely a centerpiece and it's super cool. I think the Berserkers themselves are also pretty cool, and like, there's something awesome about just having a bunch of naked dwarves running at other dragons and stuff like that, and you're like, they're badass.
Okay, that's a decent sales pitch. Now, getting into the everybody has a favorite, and it's going to be very personal, and this is all going to be super subjective. Idoneth Deepkin is my go-to example for our playgroup. We were talking about getting into AoS within the first year or so of us being in 40k, and we were like hoeing and humming what we would play. One of our friends was iffy on it, and as I was boringly going through like the different factions, I just stumbled through Idoneth saying like, oh, they're like merfolk elves who are like pseudo-zombies. And it was like the most boring thing in the world to me saying that sentence, because I don't think merfolk is cool in magic or anything. Mermaids is a weird thing. I have no interest in sea life stuff.
You're such a weirdo, man.
And then elves is boring. But our one friend who had like negative interest going into the conversation was like, hold up, they got what now? And he instantly honed in on IDK as his pick. One of my favorite painted models of his now is Eric's pick.
I took this one because it's...
You're a bastard too.
Yeah. I wanted to see what you were going to pick afterwards, because like...
Oh, my second pick was easy.
The Achelian Leviathan.
Leviathan.
I don't know, man. It's a big turtle. And it's super, super cool. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just like something about this giant snapping turtle with people hooked up riding with tridents and stuff. Like, it's so cool, man.
And they armor up his fins and tails.
Yeah, right. Like,
it's so neat.
it's absolutely unnecessary, but, may as well.
Yeah, it is probably the best sales pitch for the faction in general.
I think so. Like you said, one of the playgroup members that we play with was like, yes.
He said yes to like Namarti Thralls, the baseline boringest thing that's in the faction.
Yeah.
It was all up from there for him. But my pick is Lotan, Warden of the Soul Ledgers, who has his octopus friend.
Yeah.
The octopus has a club, a dagger, several scrolls and stuff, and is doing like way more work here than the dude with the quill.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, the octopus is definitely the brains of the operation. The dude with the quill is just there to sign.
This octopus is also like absolutely gorgeously done.
Yeah.
I am a bit of a sucker for octopuses. Like Cthulhu-headed monster things get a pretty big win for me just for having an octopus face. Cephalids are infinitely cooler as a magic creature than merfolk ever could hope to be.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely an interesting model, and it does show off that, like, there's more than just, like, merfolk. There's also, like, the rest of the aquatic.
Yeah, if you want to see, like, another, like, big aquatic monster, just look at the Akkelian King's mount, like the crazy, I don't know what to call it, a seahorse dragon?
Yeah, seahorse dragon sounds about right. Because it's got like 3 tails or something like that. That's a weird one. It's cool, though.
But let's get out of elves and back to dwarves.
Back to dwarves with Kharadron Overlords. And this one I wasn't sure. Because, like, I feel like one of the big selling points is, like, they've got steampunk ships.
I don't disagree with you. For me, it's the steampunk dwarves that sell it so much, rather than just the ship. The airship is neat.
I think that there's going to be a lot of people that, like, yeah, that airship, that's why I'm here. And then, like, the dwarves are cool enough to like support whatever. So like the Arcanaut Ironclad is like the big fancy one of them. I wasn't sure. So like the dwarves themselves that are all steampunky. We've got like the jetpack kind of things.
The fact that they all have air balloons.
Yeah, it's unique.
It matches the ship. I like the airship and the like hot air balloon personal lift pack thing.
Yeah, it's not really my jam, but I think it's unique enough and it's well done enough that like I totally understand people that look at that and are like, yes, it's so cool, man.
It's absolutely my jam. So Brock Grundson was on your list, so I didn't pick him because you already had him as your like final may have picked him. He's a great example of everything and is probably the correct answer in this. His beard has 2 more guns coming out of his mustache.
Yeah, I see him now.
But getting past him, I just think the General Arcanaut Admiral, like the baseline version, is a wonderful sales pitch for steampunk dwarves. Look at this and tell me it's not better than a Fyreslayer. Like, this is the easiest way to sell this faction, is just show a steampunk dwarf. Do you like this? If you do, you're going to love Kharadron Overlords.
Oh yeah, if you have like any of the like, you look at these and you're like, yeah, that's cool, then this is exactly where you need to be. If you look at it and you're like, that's kind of dumb, then
you're going to want to pass.
Yeah, look elsewhere.
Now we've covered a lot of elves and dwarves, so let's do something entirely different. Let's go back to elves.
Yeah, I was like, where are we going? What? Lumineth Realm-Lords. This one I wasn't really sure which one I wanted to go with.
You slam dunked my top pick. I absolutely love your pick.
So these aren't really my kind of jam. I'd rather just have like a well-sculpted horse.
Oh my god, you're so wrong. It's amazing how wrong you are.
But I can understand and I can like look at this and go, there's a lot of people that are going to say what you just said. And yeah, so the Venari Lord Regent is like, if you look at this and you're like, wow, this is so cool. This is infinitely better than any just random horse dude. All right, you're in the right spot.
They've got kangaroo horses that they put bull horns on with their armor head crest thing.
Yeah.
I love that Lumineth, they're light elves, but with like an actual identity and not just generic high elf number 168 in fantasy setting.
Who wears light colored armor.
But like having them actually have like this strangely cool bull theme on everything.
Yes.
Like bull horns and bull stuff everywhere. So my call out is actually Olorith, Spirit of the Mountain, which is just the bull mountain god looking guy, which I think just perfectly summarizes like not just boring light elves like every other setting. I love that Lumineth actually tries to do something with a generic in every fantasy setting faction and like give them a little flair.
A little flair? It's fucking massive flair.
Okay, yeah, he's huge.
What are you talking about?
Big.
They took the spice container and dumped it in. Fucking hell.
The honorable mention would go to Selenar, Spirit of Hysh. Unfortunately, Teclis is there, and he's hideous.
Yeah, that's not a great model.
So Selenar, Spirit of Hysh gets the honorable mention if you forget to put Teclis on the model and just throw him to the side. Just call Selenar Teclis.
Yeah.
Teclis is pretending to be the giant Sphinx today.
That Sphinx is really cool looking.
Oh, he's so cool.
It's such a good pose, too.
And then Teclis T-posing to assert dominance, ruining the model.
It is kind of like that, isn't it?
So he's just T-posing to assert dominance.
Yeah, Lumineth Realm-Lords is very interesting in that, like, it takes the high elf and it does a very interesting and unique take on it.
It's an aesthetic I historically hate in, like, almost every setting. Like, really despise that Lord of the Rings elf bullshit.
Yeah, you really do.
I actually borderline like these, which is shocking.
It is, and I totally understand. It's a very unique and cool aesthetic. Let's move on, though, to one that I think you have a little bit more love for, as much as you might love the Lumineth Realm-Lords, the Seraphon.
We've talked about this before on the show. If Lizardmen or Seraphon in AoS and Skaven had models that were updated in 2020, we would be an AoS podcast who would sometimes dabble in 40k instead of the other way around.
And like not even like a hypothetical kind of thing. It was like that was gonna happen and then it didn't.
Yeah, we went to get into tabletop and saw two of our favorite factions in our playgroup was Lizardmen and Skaven because we came in from Total War. And you look at their models that were the main models of 2020 and it's hideous. I mean, we'll get to Skaven later. But so Lizardmen finally got an update this edition and they're gorgeous.
They really are fantastic models.
Hilariously, mine is a model that existed in 2020 though. I'll start us off with the Saur Scar Veteran on Carnosaur.
So that's the one you picked, huh?
You knew I was going to pick one. You even wrote it before I even put it in.
But it was a toss-up. Which Carnosaur were you going to go with?
It was a toss-up because, I mean, I could put Kroxigor Warspawn.
Yeah.
I could put just the Skink Star Priest, another older model, but beautiful.
I actually really like the Skink Star Priest and I was thinking about picking it as well.
He's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's one of the best old models that was like, oh, I understand there was potential in this range.
And the Bastiladon is another one that's like, it's not from the newest iteration, but it holds up pretty well. The Skinks on its back are a little older, but they're good. Skinks can look dopey because they're so cute.
And they're skinks, like, whatever.
I could have chose Lord Croak for just the chattiest toad man.
Yeah.
Have you ever been so all-powerful of a wizard that you couldn't die and just reanimated yourself?
Yeah, you're just like, I died, but you know what? How about I don't?
There's some chaos that still needs fighting, so I'm just going to stay alive then.
Yeah, I've got work to do. I don't have time for this whole death thing. Sorry about that. I'll get back to you later.
Beautiful models through and through, but I'm still picking the Saur Scar Veteran on Carnosaur because it almost got us into AoS, and then I saw what the base battle line units in the starter box looked like, and I was like, when were these made?
I can't do it. I'm not strong enough to accept this. Yeah, no, the Saur Scar Veteran on Carnosaur is super cool.
It's a lizard riding a dinosaur. If you have to sell a fantasy Warhammer setting to someone, and you're like, oh, they've got elves, they've got dwarves.
They got people, humans, just,
There's some people corrupted by the evils of greed over here, and, and then there's this little faction over to the side that's lizards on dinosaurs.
It is fascinating that, like, you can put together like a quick punchline for all of these factions. I don't think there's any that have such a strong emotional connection to some people as Seraphon of lizards riding dinosaurs. It's all you need because there's the people that love that don't care. That's what they're there for. Lizards riding dinosaurs, all right, let's play. So long as the models aren't hideous, which they're not anymore.
They were. There's still some holdout hideous ones. dragons. Let's not look at the Temple Guard, okay? They didn't get the update yet.
We'll ignore those. I mean, there's still future releases to fix. But yeah, the Scar Veteran on Agradon is what I chose. And like, that's so fucking badass.
Yeah, it's part of the new range and it helps so much.
Like, goddamn, is that cool. One of the things for AoS is the like lineups are so interesting. You know, you got like these giant trolls and ogres and, you know, you got the dinosaurs and dragons. And then you got people, sure. But then you got things like this, like, holy shit, anything lining up against these are like, fuck, man. This was the wrong day to be on the battlefield. It's just so cool.
All right, we are far enough. We should do the poster boys. The one that they attempt to make a Space Marine 2. And it didn't quite work out, but honestly, they have less hatred against them within the AoS community because of it. It's time for the Stormcast Eternals.
All right, how do we want to do this?
I'm going to present Eric a lesson because before the show, I asked him about his choice. And I almost started a whole lecture on him and I said we should save it for the show. So let's talk about Stormcast because it's something that I don't want this show to be part of perpetuating the Stormcast memery that's not true. Stormcast is very interesting to me as a, hey, we need this to be an intro faction. They've talked about it before as like a part of moving to AoS was getting something like Stormcast to be the new poster children instead of the Empire because new painters have trouble with human skin, large hordes, stuff like that, so they needed an elite armored thing to be the main characters. That's why Stormcast exists from a meta standpoint. It's why they're main characters, so that there is an easy starting army for your 12-year-old cousin or nephew or whoever to start with.
I mean, even ignoring the 12-year-old nephew, it's nice to not have to deal with skin if you're a new painter.
Sure, but I'm just saying for people who are older and may be against the idea of Stormcast, that's why they were made. Now, the first generation of Stormcast basically just looked like Space Marines, and they got called Land Marines, Sigmarines, blah, blah, blah.
It was very on the nose.
Eric's choice comes from this era with the Lord Castellan.
Which is another thing that Space Marines does is the fucking, let's make it as complicated as possible for naming conventions and make things very, very similar.
Yeah.
Fuck you, GW, stop it. You literally can make up words. Stop making them look the same.
But the first generation had Space Marine awful proportions. Everyone's very chubby. There's a whole lot of Grey Knights level tchotchke stuff all over. 100 lightning bolts and a bunch of flaming comets on everything.
Yeah, very much the let's take an elite Space Marine, whatever flavor you want to say, Grey Knights, Custodes, like whatever, and put it in this fantasy setting.
Now, they did move on from this. There have been 3, I want to say, there may technically be a 4th, but there have been 3 eras of Stormcast so far, which align with the 3 editions of AoS, and there will clearly be a 4th this year with the 4th release. We already have some rumors about what it might be.
Shockingly, AoS is in the 3rd edition and 4th is likely this summer, so
Yeah, tell us how Adepticon went.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
That should be happening just after this episode goes live. But like, to give an example for our audience, the first iteration of Stormcast for like their mainline unit was Retributors. But then in the second iteration, they went a little sleeker. They got rid of a lot of the random crap on their heads and stuff and went to the Sequitors. They're a little more battle magey.
It's more like the, what if Greeks were, you know, kind of power armory?
Yeah, a Greek-Roman vibe, yeah. And that honestly moved even further. In AoS 3, we had the Dominion release, and the Dominion release gave us a main battle line type unit that is beautifully lower armor, like the Vigilors. They're the Bowie equivalent, but the point stands, you put them next to 2 iterations of Stormcast ago. Like, put them next to Retributors.
Right.
It's night and day how much they have evolved in look. And in terms of the game, the reason this is, the reason it's backloaded given.
I was like, hold on. Don't try and use lore as the reason that this happened. Don't even do that.
The lore has the excuse for us. So the reason is Sigmar has the like vaults the Stormcast were locked in that he like stole from Nagash or something. I'm not too heavy into my AoS lore yet. And he's been cracking them open as needed to try to stave off the forces of the other 3 Grand Alliances. The third one is where we get the nice sleeker ones here. So Sigmar's been cracking these open one at a time, and that's why each iteration shows off a different aspect. And it helps that in the 3rd release, they said, screw it, they're not selling as well as we wanted, throw some dragons in there.
Yeah. And at some point in the future, we'll probably look at Stormcast Eternals a bit more in depth because it is interesting on the iteration of the line and how that actually has evolved.
Yeah, I'd like the 4th iteration to come out because I do think it'll be really fun to do like a deep dive episode on this topic.
But we're in the 3rd and we got fucking dragons.
We got dragons. I'm not going to pick the dragons, though. Stormdrake Guard is an easy pick for a lot of people. Look at them, ta-da. I'm actually going to pick Lord Commander Bastian Carthalos, the chattiest Chad to ever walk. Look at this guy. The hammer he wields looks amazing. He's got this powerful stance, this huge build, but actually proportioned well, unlike the first revision.
He looks like a Hercules, a Zeus on the mortal plane.
What Stormcast is supposed to be representing? Exactly.
Yeah, he looks like that demigod kind of vibe of like, I'm just a big fucking brick house of muscle and death.
And magic.
And magic, sure.
I got lightning eyes.
Yeah, I mean, as much as you have kind of like sold it, and like, I definitely think that like the new iteration does a good job of distinguishing itself from just like, oh, look, it's Space Marines, but they put them in AoS.
Especially if you look at the range as a whole rather than the portion that is newer, you see a lot of the older kits.
And it's just like, I don't really care that much about Custodes. I don't care that much about Stormcast Eternals.
It's fair.
And it's for the same reason. Like, I feel like there's going to be a lot of overlap of like, if you like that kind of thing, Stormcast is where you want to be, and they're also making it like better than Custodes, right?
Yeah, the Praetor sculpt. If you see those painted not in just the GW color scheme, like the official color scheme, but like any of the other Stormcast variant color schemes or like people's custom ones, my god, with those cloaks on, it's so good.
I am actually a huge fan of the cloak aesthetic. It adds actually a lot to differentiate from just like power armor into this like
knights.
Yeah,
it's like a beyond humanity knights, which you could argue Space Marines again is supposed to be, but they tend to go full meme.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for these, and I am interested to see what the next iteration is going to be, because like they've got dragons, so like there's a wide range of things that could be done.
They deserve some respect compared to Marines, honestly. Like, yes, they were made specifically to be Space Marines in fantasy, but shout out to going beyond that and being far more respectable in a lot of ways.
Definitely have found their own niche a bit, and it feels like they're AoS instead of just grabbed and ported into it. So let's move on, though. Sylvaneth. I know you think my pick is a meme, but it's not.
No, say your pick.
The Awakened Wildwood, it's the perfect mascot. If you like trees, play Sylvaneth.
It's more funny if you understand the history of Sylvaneth and AoS of these trees have had more iterations of rules than possibly any unit in the game. They could not figure out what they want to do with these trees. I don't think they've gone a year without a rewrite.
Sounds about right. I mean, they're not going to go away. They're not going to be like, oh, these rules are too difficult. We're just going to phase these out. The Awakened Wildwood will be in AoS until like AoS isn't a thing anymore.
It helps that they're the only woods that GW sells for terrain, including for 40k.
Yeah, they are just beautiful terrain for like just having terrain.
They really are. We don't play Sylvaneth and we have 2 copies of this.
Yeah, and it is just a good kit.
It is a joke pick though.
It isn't, because like if you have that I like nature and trees kind of thing, play Sylvaneth. You will enjoy the aesthetic.
Okay, so I expected Eric to pick a Tree Lord Ancient, pick any of them, but Durthu would be the one that I would show off first because I love how he looks. But you could go for like Drycha even, who isn't even like the Tree Lord Ancient type one.
All of these names are difficult to remember for me.
Durthu and Drycha I literally only can remember because they're in Total War.
Yeah, that does help.
But you could pick like Alariel if you want to show off a god tier unit, which we tried not to spam picking every one of the gods that's available for this, especially because a lot of them are playable in multiple armies. We try to show off the army, but like there's several. I'm going to say Durthu is my pick, but like Spite Revenants is a beautiful example of like what the baseline looks like. The Arch Revenant is a gorgeous kit as well. I've seen people steal that so many times for 40k conversions in Drukhari and stuff to make like custom Archons.
And that's kind of why I ended up going with the Awakened Wildwood is, because so much of Sylvaneth doesn't need you to actually play Age of Sigmar to absolutely love building, painting, and having.
What you're thinking of is more of the problem with Drukhari and 40k than it is Sylvaneth and AoS, but that's a different topic.
But I mean, it's one of those that, like, I think Sylvaneth benefits from that. Just like play trees.
All right, we have made our way out of order. We can move on to death, and these are going to get a lot faster to get through because order's like twice the size of everybody else.
All right, Flesh Eater Courts.
We both picked new models because the refresh for this range is sorely needed.
Morbeg, the Bat Knights.
It's a great look.
They're just super creepy to me. It's kind of the aesthetic that shows off what Flesh Eater Courts is trying to do.
And mine is hands down my favorite model of the year from GW.
Oh.
I love this model. Usharan Mortarch of Delusion. Good God, do I love this model.
It is cool.
It is gorgeous from so many angles. Just spinning it around is so cool. He's a better sales pitch for Flesh Eater Courts than the entire rest of the range combined.
That's fair. But at the same time, like, you have to have more than just him. Luckily, the refresh did give us some other things.
But if I'm trying to sell you Flesh Eater Courts as they're ghouls that believe they're still noble knights,
yeah.
And like, he still thinks he's a king in a beautiful outfit with his beautiful golden scepter, and he's got his crown on and all of that. He thinks he's got some war trophies that are actually human heads that are on him. I absolutely love the idea behind Flesh Eater Courts, and the newer kits have done a way better job of bringing it out of them.
Yes, it does have that aesthetic of, like, at least to me, it's creepy, but not in this like Cthulhu kind of sense, more in like things just don't really seem right. There's like little bits and like the skulls, something about those on the cape thing. It's just not right, man, but it fits so well.
All right, moving into the most stereotypical part of death for me, the Nighthaunt. It's ghosts.
It's ghosts.
It's a faction of ghosts. Do you like ghosts?
I do like ghosts, and the Grimghast Reapers are cool. They've got the scythe, man. It like trope, let's hit it. Thank you.
It's interesting to me that it is a faction of just bedsheet ghosts, right? Like through and through, everything is just, it's wearing a bedsheet.
Yeah.
And I still have different favorites than you. I didn't want to try to argue you out of your Reapers, but the Bladegeist Revenants would be my pick out of those two with their like heavy claymores.
Yeah.
And it's essentially the exact same thing, but like the little difference makes all the difference in the world for which one you like more. And that's interesting to me that you can have all this. But my actual pick for a sales pitch for Nighthaunt is the Black Coach. I can't not.
That's fair.
It hangs like 6 inches off the front of the base and like 3 inches off the back of the base.
It's so stupid, but
it's basically an art piece and not a model.
Yes, it is an art piece, and it's a cool art piece.
It is so cool.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, there's so many things about Nighthaunt that I'm just like, yeah, they're cool. Like, they're basic. Like you said, they're bedsheet ghosts. But, like...
They show off one of my favorite parts of AoS design, though. The idea of, like, can I make an army out of bedsheet ghosts? It turns out you can, and you can make them pretty cool.
Yeah, like, Iwark, the Drowner, it's just surprising how much uniqueness is done from this trope. The fact that Nighthaunt's able to actually have unique models, but they're all the same at the same time. I don't know, man. It's just very fun, and it's cool to see the tropes hit.
All right, let's move on to the other type of dead with Skelly Boys, or bug exoskeleton Skelly Boys, the Ossiarch Bonereapers.
I don't understand these ones, and I'm sure that there's some lore that I'm missing, but like, from what I understand and looking at the art and stuff, it's like, let's just have liches that reanimate things and bones and skeletons, and the Morrison Bone Shaper kind of sums it up for me. It's a shockingly dynamic scene for something that's dead, right? Like...
I like your pick a lot, and I think the other way to look at the army is my pick with the Necropolis Stalkers. Of it shows off these are undead using bones as suits of armor rather than
being bones. Yeah.
It's not that you're a skeleton, it's that you use a skeleton as armor.
That is neat.
You've got 4 arms, 3 heads. That certainly isn't a normal looking skeleton. It looks like an exoskeleton. I love the front guy has 2 great swords and is dual gripping them with each of his sides because he has 4 arms. I just love that he's dual wielding while also two-handing.
It's definitely an interesting thing that is difficult to pull off. 4 arms helps. Very different aesthetic, though.
Yeah, and as an honorable mention, there's one other focus that the Ossiarch Bonereapers have. I think it's best shown off with, like, Gothazar Harvester. Zoom in a bit. And then you've got their Mortarch is Catacros. And, like, why is everyone hacking heat in this army?
I mean,
Gothazar Harvester has Dick Guy. Like, it's just Dick Guy. That's the nickname. You just have to live with it. You're playing with Dick Guy. Catacros has the center of his model. The focal point of the art is his giant codpiece.
let's think about it, though. If most of the male population, if they were brought back as skeletons and were able to modify certain things.
You got to make sure that people knew you were hung in life.
Yeah. Are you telling me this kind of stuff wouldn't be the norm? It's dumb, but also I get it.
All right, as the newest faction in Death, we have the Soulblight Gravelords. Eric, what's your take on the Soulblight Gravelords?
I don't like them.
What's your general opinion on vampires?
These are dumb. I don't know, man. It's just like, okay, there's an expectation from vampire tropes. None of these really hit that point. The best ones being like the werewolves that are vampires, you know, like that kind of thing. Like that kind of makes sense here. The rest of them are just like weird. So like, I don't know what to pick. Like the dire wolves and that kind of stuff is neat, but
I can sell Soulblight. My pick is not a vampire because one of my things with Soulblight is it is an army led by vampires. It is an army of the undead led by vampire lords.
right.
That's the thing. It's not an army of vampires. That would be silly.
Yes, that would be silly, wouldn't it, Brad?
Yes. My brother definitely doesn't have a strong polar opposite opinion to that. So my pick is actually a battle line equivalent unit of Death Rattle Skeletons. This kit is one of my all-time favorite kits. It's so good. I have never seen such a good looking skeleton done in, you know, a miniature model.
Well, it's not just like skeleton. It's like old busted skeleton. You died on the battlefield and are brought back.
That's the key part. This isn't grandma skeleton that they got out of like the local graveyard.
Right.
These guys are in their armor with their chest wounds and everything else still there. Absolutely gorgeous. I love the cutlass looking swords. I love the basic shields. Oh, it's so right.
It is a well-designed story that it shows off. And I get that. I don't know that sells the army to me.
My other thing would be like, if you want to see how cool it can get on the vampire side of things, instead of focusing on like generic vampire, like with Eric's Blood Knights.
Yeah, I mean, I went with the Blood Knights eventually just because like it's kind of vampire-y and I still like horses, so whatever. Good enough.
But mine would be to show off the fact that like there's an entire section of these that are vampire werewolves.
Yeah.
And I would go with Radikar the Beast, who is like the coolest dude. I'm not a big fan of his little gremlins, but they're entirely optional to put on that base. Just don't put them on the base. They're a little weird.
Yeah, I feel like you were bringing up that there's like sections of vampire styles.
Yes, so there is when you get into like the lore, Soulblight is split up between different types of vampires. And again, it's like you can go the monstrosity route, you can go the werewolf route, you can go the like noble knight house that happens to be vampires, like the classic Dracula trope. There's different types.
And I think the wolf ones are the ones that are most fleshed out right now. Like there's enough in that kit range that it's like, okay, yeah, you can do that. The other ones I think need a little bit more still.
It's a fair way to say it, but I think it's very easy to sell Soulblight to people who want to have vampire leading an army of the undead. Just march forward, my skeletons. March forward, 100 zombies.
Right. You died before, but get up and keep going.
All right, enough talking about death. Eric, bring us into chaos.
All right, Beast of Chaos, man. This is a whole thing.
We gotta hype them up, Eric.
I actually like Beast. I think the Minotaur design is cool.
I do too.
The Doom Bull's actually pretty cool in my opinion. It's like, yeah, let's go.
It's old though.
It's old. It needs some, let's make the muscles a little bit bigger. Let's make that axe a little bit bigger and scarier. And
my thing is, a lot of the best parts of Beasts of Chaos are kits that are not in Beasts of Chaos.
And ain't that the actual problem? All the new models that should be here.
Yeah, my problem is I think Slays of Darkness just does the Minotaur theme better with their newer Minotaur kits.
Yeah.
And then you get into the rest of Beastmen and
yeah.
What's your opinion on Goatmen?
It's doable, but
what's your opinion on Goatmen who were sculpted 30 years ago?
No. Right? There is a way to make Goatmen be interesting enough to be a battle line, and then you have the Minotaurs as I'm the big strong guy kind of thing.
If I have to sell Beasts of Chaos to somebody, I'm going to pick a Brayherd because I honestly think the model looks pretty okay. I think it sells the idea Beasts of Chaos is going for. The faction is rough to sell for us.
It feels like they're trying to make Beasts of Chaos kind of disappear into another faction.
It might move into STD over time. It's still technically got a release this edition, but
there's a bunch of new models that are those were Beasts of Chaos, but they're not there. So it's tough to be let's hype up this faction, but it might be gone at some point, in my opinion.
Yeah. So let's move on to the more beloved parts of Chaos.
All right, Blades of Khorne.
Yeah, so we get all 4 Chaos Gods getting their own armies. What's that like? 40k players are jealous.
Maybe one day.
So, Eric, who is your pick for Khorne?
I went with Skarbrand. I think he's just so cool. I could understand, let's just go with a Bloodthirster instead. Either way, they're basically the same, except different, right? It's just big anger.
So, Blades of Khorne, obviously with all of the 4 Chaos Gods, with all of the 4 major Chaos Gods that people think of and not Skaven,
yeah.
You have your demons and you have your mortals.
Right.
I always err on the side of demons. However, with Khorne, there is a model that I think sells the mortal followers so well and is the easiest sales pitch for them, and that's the Slaughter Priest. This model is so good. From name of the unit, the Slaughter Priest sums up Khorne of you still have devotion and all of that. It's done through violence.
Yeah, that's definitely a very Khorne name and style. And I mean, the model itself.
God, it's awesome.
There's a lot of violence intended.
I love how simple it is. It's a half-naked dude. That's all it is. But the fact that he's got the classic Chaos helmet absolutely being ripped, but he's in a half meditative pose, but very clearly ready to just behead somebody.
Right.
The thing he's looking at is a ball and chain that he's going to whip at somebody.
Exactly. It's very much this is the steady state before the slaughtering, before the ball starts spinning and people start dying.
It's also a nice, to put it in D&D terms that a lot of people get, is Khorne known for intelligence? No. But in addition to their strength, you'll probably find someone who will spout some high wisdom shit.
Right.
You're going to get some weirdly sagely statements out of them while they're also occasionally screaming blood and skulls and blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne.
Well, I mean, there's definitely something about the simplicity that it's you cut through all of the complicated matters and get right to the point. And yeah, there can be genius in the simplicity, but let's go to Tzeentch.
For real genius.
Yeah.
I'm shocked at your pick, Eric. Go for it.
I went with the Flamers.
All right.
I feel like they show the aesthetic of you're going to be playing weird demons that are actual chaos.
Okay, fair sales pitch on that front. All right.
Right? Out of all of them, you look at Khorne and even Slaanesh and even Nurgle, it's yeah, okay, but it's not really that fucking weird, is it? And then you look at Tzeentch and you're Flamers of Tzeentch, what the fuck is this? I have no idea. It's cool though.
Screamer comes at you and you're just I want to scream.
Yeah, right, exactly. What the fuck is this? Oh, it's shooting flames. Good enough. I should run.
That Screamer has 8 eyes and a million teeth and is basically a flying saw blade.
Yeah, right.
That horror just split into 2 horrors that ripped it in half.
Exactly. It's just so chaotically weird that I'm if that's what you're kind of going for, if that's what you like, this weird aesthetic aesthetic for the demons, Tzeentch just got you covered.
Yeah, my pick was never not going to be Lord of Change. It's like my all-time favorite model, or damn close.
Yeah.
I do think that now that we've had more years, there are better models now, but this is like my one true love, the OG, the one that made me go, Tzeentch is the best. Giant bird monster.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Well, I mean, it was that or Kairos, right?
Yeah, Lord of Change is just better in my opinion. It's more simplistic. Kairos kind of goes overboard with he's a little silly. But I do love Kairos from the meme factor.
Lord of Change, though, very serious.
Hey. Shut up.
Kairos, step too far, a little silly.
If you look at Lord of Change and you're like, that is the coolest shit, you're probably a Tzeentch player.
And like, you probably won't hate Zangors either.
No, you'll probably like them. I love how they look. They're a joke.
Yeah, stop trying to push 40k like that. Let's move on to Slaanesh, I guess.
We both picked the two opposite sides of the coin here, so go with the obvious.
I went with Shalaxi.
Classic. We basically just had to hit all the greater demons going through this.
It's
like,
difficult.
Spoiler for Nurgle, but it's hard to not use greater demons to sell these factions. It's probably why you're here.
It's a large reason on why most people play is they look at the greater demons and they go, yeah, that's the one that I want to play. The rest of the army kind of does a good enough job to sell me the rest of the way. So yeah, I mean, Shalaxi, that's what we're here for, kind of thing. But you went with the other side.
Yeah, a gorgeous kit too, in like a weird way.
Yeah, like there's the pain, torture, sexy kind of thing, and then
the great show of excess in like all its ways on this model. So I'm going with Glutos, who I just realized has a last name, or Scullion, the Lord of Gluttony. His model is amazing because it's like the whole procession on his weird chariot thing that's like you've got two bodyguard guys who got turned into essentially cattle to pull it.
Like crab cattle, though.
Yeah, very interesting. And then, of course, Lord of Gluttony, he's huge, he's fat, he's smoking, drinking, and eating all at once.
Yeah, he is. He's consuming anything that can be consumed.
The guy is Vice incarnate. He's got his whole ensemble with him there. And it's like ostentatious. It's not a battle wagon in any way. His moving palace.
It is a fantastic model. There's so much detail into all the styles of excess. It is really well done. The only thing being there's not that much to the rest of the range that follows.
Yeah, it's definitely the peak. But again, it's a sales pitch.
And I mean, I hope that they continue to explore those types of excess of like, it doesn't need to just be pain and sex.
We need some rock and roll.
And food. Speaking of food, let's
do you want some Nurgle food?
Go to the Maggotkin. I mean, the Great Unclean One. We talked about it. You gotta go. They're the sales pitches for the 4 sections of Chaos. And they're all like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, and I love the Guo. Oh, it's a beautiful kit in gross ways.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful kit.
Oh, it's absolutely disgusting in like, ugh. But it's done in such a great way.
It's hard to be in Nurgle. I think my alternative is nice, though, to look at a different angle. I almost went with the Glotkin, but it was too close to the Great Unclean One for me.
It's, yeah, very similar.
Very much the mortal equivalent. So I went with the new version of the Harbinger of Decay, which is basically based off the super old version. But it's a gorgeous aspect of death.
I absolutely love the fact that you brought this one up, just because that is one of the things of Nurgle, right? Is like, it's death.
Yeah, it's still gross through and through, but it is the idea that life and death is not binary. It is a sliding scale that you can move around as you will.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be explored in that aspect.
And it's got all the grossness too of like, it's got some gross pustule stuff doing the Nurgle symbol, the really gross when you start looking at details, but it's a gorgeous like showing of the decay and rot.
It's definitely well designed of the more you look at it, the nastier it is. Quick glance at it and it's like, oh, it's like
Grim Reaper on a horse thing.
Grim Reaper on a dead horse. All right, yeah. Oh, ew. So yeah, the Harbinger of Decay is definitely a good shout out as another one compared to the Great Unclean one.
Oh, wait, we have to shout out one last model, Festus the Leech Lord.
Oh?
I don't know why. I just want to talk about it for a bit so that Borrelio has to stare at it while he edits.
All right.
I know he loves that model. It's his favoritist model. It doesn't upset him at all to stare at.
You gotta make sure that it shows up on the screen and, it's properly...
All right, so for the final dedicated god of chaos here, we've got Skaven with the Great Horned Rat.
I guess, yeah. Skaven is a fucking problem.
So Adepticon should be right after we post this episode.
And boy, do I hope that there's some great model examples that get shown.
It is very heavily hinted at that we're going to get the first reveals of the new Skaven range. The actual pick for Skaven for a sales pitch is anything from that.
Yes. But
for now, the answers are these.
I actually think the Warlock Bombardier is pretty cool.
Yeah, he's pretty neat.
It's old.
They're all old. You can skip they're old.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool aspects. Gun, cool, weirdness going on with those back.
I love the warp stone to ignite the rocket.
Yeah, why not?
It's a very cute design.
And then let's just have the bag of rats that we're going to unleash.
Yeah, I went with Storm Fiends. They're one of the newest models in the Skaven range. They still look pretty good. They're definitely basically alone when it comes to Skaven that don't look awful.
It is interesting to see the Hulk rats.
Yeah, dude, I love the idea of Skaven. Just looking at what they've got access to in Total War.
Oh yeah, the whole let's pump them full of warp stone thingies and like see what happens.
Yeah, and the idea that you've got like comparatively to everybody else, a high-tech society with their magic tech. It's all mad science stuff combined with their religious stuff going into the whole pestilence thing, which overlaps with Nurgle a bit too much, but that's a whole different topic.
They're rats.
Yeah. And then you've got the assassin part. Don't look at the actual models for it. Just look at the Total War ones and hope that they show those off.
Out of all of them, I'm looking forward to the Rattling guns.
Yes.
I want to see those done.
Giselles.
Yeah, and okay, if we're being honest, because we don't know what's happening at Adepticon, take a look at Total War Warhammer. That's the potential that you can see, and it's really cool. Let's just hope that, the new models can actually live up to it. And Storm Fiends do a solid job, so there's good expectations.
And then, I guess to wrap up Chaos, we've got Slaves to Darkness. The I couldn't choose, so I chose them all.
The let's get rid of Beasts of Chaos.
And now you've got the Barbarians getting added in with Dark Oath.
Yeah, they're neat, but this is Slaves to Darkness is...
It's your one-stop shop. They do it all well. It's just they're your middle of the road. I just want to play the Black Knight.
Yes. And I picked Eternus, Blade of the First Prince.
Which is a solid choice.
It's badass.
It really is.
When you say hey, it's a bit of everything just done well, and yeah, this is the Dark Knight aesthetic done fantastically, man.
I just want to be evil. I don't want to be stinky evil. I don't want to be witchcrafty evil. I don't want to be sexy evil.
I just want to be a bad guy. Yeah, man. It's just so cool. And there's a lot of really cool models in the range, and they're getting more because catch all.
Yeah, I could double down and do Chaos Lord on Karkadrak.
Yeah.
Just for another equivalent to him. But just showing off the Chaos Chosen, which are so good looking. It's the why you're here. Do you want to play an army that looks like this?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it kind of is, right? These are the evil knights.
And this is without getting into Bellicors here. You could just play a Demon Prince. There's even okay, I almost picked it, even though it's very stupid and is incorrect just because I love it so much. The Mindstealer Sphere Ranks.
I honestly could have bet good money that you love that model.
It's so good.
It is cool.
It's not even a proper unit. It's a Warcry unit that just happens to have rules in AoS, but I don't care. Just look at the thing.
Yeah, it's like the Lumineth Realm-Lords, but evil.
Yeah, because of the Sphinx. Okay, yeah. It's very Tzeentchian. I love it.
It's got a lot of those things going on, but it's not. It's not really the...
No, it's not correct. Chaos Chosen is my actual choice.
Yeah. It's just a nice little flare.
But yeah, let's move into destruction. There's only a couple of these left to do.
So, Sons of Behemat.
It's not a great start, is it?
It is. They're cool.
It's very monotone.
It's just, there's 8 or 9 models or whatever. They're all very similar.
They're all the same.
If you like the giant ogre-like things, Sons of Behemat is where you want to be. They are really well done. I went with the War Stomper Mega Gargant because I think that one's probably the coolest.
Of the generics is my favorite too, but I did King Brode. It doesn't really matter. They're all giants. They all look the same, but with different flares.
Yeah, the core silhouette, it's a big giant. There's a lot of differences if you look at the individuals of like, okay, this one's got a club, that one's got a hammer, this one's got horns.
This one's an executioner looking guy. This guy's got a bunch of fishing stuff on him.
There is a lot of differences. It's just like they're all that same thing. If you don't like the big giant, you're not going to like Sons of Behemat. But if you do, you're in the right spot.
All right, let's go into the probably most classic of destruction, Orruks.
Yeah, the Orruk Warclans. I'll go with the Beast Skewer Killbow. This is the one that like sold me on these are cool.
Yeah, and it's worth noting this is Eric's army, but specifically it's not Ironjawz he started with, the Dominion Cruel Boys.
And it's because of the Killbow. This is such a cool model to me. The like weapon itself is so excessive. Right? Like, what the fuck is this thing?
It's a more serious version of orcs than like Ironjawz is the classic hulking brute orc, right? And then we don't talk about the third option.
Yeah.
Do you like playing naked orcs who dance around?
It's a fair aesthetic, all right?
It's goofy.
It's a little silly, and it does it well in a silly way.
But I wanted to pick Ironjawz for mine, but I cannot lie to myself. Gobsprak, the Mouth of Mork, is unparalleled.
That's fair.
Look at him on his giant vulture. He's such a cute birdie. I'm not even a bird guy in real life. I just like these bird models. It's weird.
Well, I mean, it's got a lot of detail, but not in like a tchotchke way, right?
Yeah. It's a very regally look. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There's something very cool about the giant vulture and the old wizard man on top.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of wisdom.
But if you want to look at some Ironjawz stuff, which is, again, completely valid other way to do this, fantastic. You've got, like, the Maw Grunta Gouger, the Brute Ragers, who look awesome. And then, like, the classic is Godrak riding his Angry Cabbage.
Cabbage. I haven't heard that.
Oh yeah, that's the classic. That one I know is a common AoS joke of he's the Angry Cabbage.
I mean, yeah, it is.
Look at him.
It is.
He's just a big green ball.
You're not wrong, but it's a pretty cool cabbage as far as I'm concerned.
He's very cool, but you have to know going in that you're gonna have him get called that.
Yeah.
You have to be okay with the fact that he's a cabbage.
I'll never not see that.
It's an unfortunate silhouette. It's just how he looks.
Yeah. Oh, man. But it's a cool model. I definitely understand. And, I mean, it's also one of those, like, most people who like Orruks are going to know pretty quickly that they like them.
Yeah, they probably came here looking for the section where orcs are mentioned.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to play big muscly green dudes. Where are they at?
This is here.
And there's more than just the muscly ones. You can have the, like, sneakier ones.
Yeah.
Or the naked ones. We got them all. The 3 types of armies.
That's yeah.
The brute force, the sneaky clever,
and the naked. Yes, that's absolutely the third point in that triangle of army compositions. Yes, you know, the dwarves have figured it out. All right, let's move on to ogres.
Yes, ogres.
I went with the ogre gluttons.
Very classic.
It's just so damn classic, right?
They're kind of old looking.
Ogres, and I'm like, yep, this is what I imagined.
It's fair. It's exactly what I'm used to from their Total War equivalent. Yep.
It's exactly what I have as any preconceived notions without like thinking. These are the models that I want to play when I hear ogres.
Yeah, and you went with Gutbusters, like classic ogre look. I'm more on the side of Beastclaw Raiders, which I would choose the Huskard on Stonehorn as like the classic example of you've got a more wintry hunter aesthetic.
Yes, I would say try to make the eyes and the eyes a little bit different than that they're showing, because that model looks like it's in pain.
I love it.
It looks like it's screaming out because internal organs are melting or something, man. It is in just sheer terror.
You're like looking at that model and you can hear the god-awful howl it's making at you when it spots you, and you know how screwed you are. Like, it just alerted them to you sneaking around.
Yeah, or it's death rattle or something, but... It is definitely a different, like, take, but at the same time, like, the cold, frozen North Ogre kind of thing hits cool.
Yeah, and again, it's that there's two very unique aesthetics within this one faction you can go into. Not to get into lore with this, but I really do like the lore difference too between them. If you get into ogres, you can get into all that. Just go watch Haywo. He will have a far deeper understanding than I ever will, and I just watch Haywo to get my info.
That is absolutely fair. I guess let's get on to the Gitz. Gloomspite Gitz. I mean, I went with the Mangler Squigs.
Yeah, it's basically, do you want to do the Grots and the Squigs, or do you want to do the silly trolls?
Yeah.
You chose the Mangler Squigs, which is just gorgeous. It's such a lively pose.
There's something about the silly, stupid, just, it's so lively and it's so dumb, and like proportions are weird, but like it's right at the same time. It's just great.
Part of Gloomspite to me is the Alice in Wonderland style look, if that makes sense. The like twisted fantasy.
Yes.
Like, it's fun loving, but in like a I don't want to be here.
Right. Like, things sound fun from a story, but like, no, never do I want to experience it.
They're going to be joking around and rip my arm off.
And it's just going to be good fun. My arm's still going to be fucking ripped off.
But yeah, like, if you want like an older example, there's like Fanatics still show a ton of energy in their posing and stuff that I think does a really good job. But like, I went with the total opposite side of things of also trolls are here. So I got the Rotgut Troggoths, and I love their aesthetic. They're very, very dopey, but like in this beautiful, purposeful way of like, they've all got pot bellies. They've all got their silly giant nose and big floppy ears that go all the way down their face like a dog. They look like almost friendly, but you can see like they would be sinister if their brains were bigger.
It's got the exact same like Alice in Wonderland of like, it's so dopey, and it's like you said, it's got like the dog like ears of like, oh, you could be a good friend or whatever. You're kind of funny. And then you look at it and like, that's like a very muscular thing that could probably rip a person in half very easily.
But yeah, I just, the Dankhold Troggoth is close, but I think the Rotgut Troggoth is like peak. Like exactly showing off the aesthetic.
I agree, but there's something to be said about Dankhold.
Just the word dank. You just wanted to say it again.
Yeah, it rolls off the tongue, Dankhold.
All right, that wraps up the last army. We made it.
Holy shit.
It's been a long recording.
It's interesting because it feels like 40K has so many more than AoS sometimes. And then like we actually go into it and it's like, hold on, no, there's a lot of AoS.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how AoS handles like such wonderfully different art styles and just beautifully sculpted models in so many armies. Every army's got the like, yikes, that's pretty old, other than like the AoS exclusive armies sometimes get away without that. That's just how they are. Some of them are holdovers from the old fantasy days. You can always tell the newer models because like, it's not really a surprise that for the vast majority of the models on our list, they're some of the newest models. Like the current AoS sculpting team is doing a beautiful job with this game.
Oh, absolutely. It's some of the coolest models just in general, ignoring like gameplay and all of that stuff.
And while we're wrapping this up and talking about these beautiful models, if you're on YouTube right now, can you do us the favor and do like the typical YouTube pleasantries? But while you're in the comments, send a thank you to Berylio. He's our editor. And if you're on YouTube and looking at pretty pictures of all the models that are like nice and cut out properly so that they're not on a giant white background, That's a lot of work that he does and has done for basically every model in 40K. And we just told him, like, hey, we want to talk about a different game this week, so good luck, get back to work.
Yeah, I mean, we gave him like a day or two extra than normal, but there's a lot of back end work that he probably hasn't done for AoS since we haven't really talked about it too much. And we talked about a lot of models.
Yeah, so please give him a thank you. I'll make sure on his one break a day that I give him that he gets to look at them.
How exciting.
Before he goes back to the editing mines.
Right.
Yeah, and if you're still with us at this point, you're probably the type of people who may want to help support us or whatever. If you're on YouTube, there are ways to do so below. We've got merch and stuff. Look, I remembered it.
Hey, merch call out.
And if you're a regular of us, this is your reminder that next month, the week of April 29th, the book club episode should be airing. It will be on the fall of Cadia. Make sure to read up if you're afraid of spoilers. It should be a fun episode.
Spoiler, Cadia falls.
And then they get new Cadia.
But yeah, there's still a little bit of time, but I guess I should probably start reading.
All right, that does it for this week's episode. I hope we helped people who are like looking to get into AoS. Maybe Adepticon officially stated 4th edition is coming up and you're here because you were looking into like, hey, what army do I think I like in AoS?
Yeah, I just please have new rats. Please.
Yes. Please have better Skaven than the one we mentioned here.
We'll see.
All right, have fun everybody and let's get out of here.
Sounds good.